And now we're going to be reading from Luke chapter 13, and we're going to take verses 6 through 9. He spake also this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Then said he unto the dresser of his vineyard, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this tree, and find none. Cut it down. Why cumbereth it the ground? And he answering said unto him, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about it and dust. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. Our subject today, why cumbereth it the ground? Because this particular fig tree was getting everything that all the other trees were getting. It was getting water, sunlight, vitamins, minerals, everything every other tree got. This tree got it, except it didn't bear any fruit. It was taking, but it didn't want to give. Like a lot of people in church. People in church, not everyone, but a lot of people come there for Sabbath school, listen to the special music, listen to the praise team, listen to testimonies, 11 o'clock service, sing songs, the hymns of praise. They listen to all that, take all that in. But they refuse to stand in the gap for anyone. They refuse to pray anyone through an emergency. They take and take and take, and they refuse to give. And that was the problem with this fig tree. You got a lot of people who they're not going to lift a finger unless they know they're going to get something back. They're takers. I saw a friend of mine for Thanksgiving. We've been friends for at least 25 years. And we were sitting there talking, and all of a sudden he said, we were talking about money. All of a sudden he said, my wife gets all my check. She gets the whole thing. And I'm sitting there laughing because if you knew him, you wouldn't think that he would do something like that. He doesn't sound like he would do something like that. But he said, my wife, my entire check gets deposited into her account. Almost like he was bragging about it. And I'm just laughing, but I didn't say a word because that's their business. See, I normally I would have said, oh, well, you sure you want to do that? But it's none of my business. That's what they do. It works for them. And any couple who it might seem strange to other people, the things that they do, as long as it's not immoral and it's not, no one is getting abused, it's none of your business. It works for them. Not just with money, but with anything. It works for them. So I kept my mouth closed. I was watching an interview on TV, and the man was interviewing a couple. They were older. And he said, well, describe your relationship. He said, it's 90-10. I'm the 90 and she's the 10. And she's sitting there smiling. But when he said I'm the 90 and she's the 10, you could tell something was bothering him. The thing that was bothering him was that he gives 90%. Now, how can you sit there and allow your husband or your wife to give 90% and you only give 10%? How can you sit there and do that? And she's smiling. She should have been embarrassed. That's selfishness. And you're going to see that wherever you see selfishness, covetousness is always hanging around. Mm-hmm. And whenever you see covetousness, mm-hmm. selfishness is right nearby. Mm-hmm. But they may get along, which they did, but you will never see anyone survive a relationship that's 100-0. That's a relationship that's over. You can't survive that. Another book was opened, wherein were recorded the sins of those who confessed the truth. This is the judgment scene right here. Under the general heading of selfishness came every other sin. There were also headings over every column. See, she's looking at the actual book of God. So we need to take note of this. There were also headings over every column, and underneath these, opposite each name, were recorded in their respective columns the lesser sins. Under covetousness came falsehood, theft, robbery, fraud, avariciousness. Under ambition came pride and extravagance. Jealousy stood at the head of malice. Envy, hatred, and intemperance headed a long list of fearful crimes, such as lasciviousness, adultery, indulgence of animal passions, etc. So So don't lose that. The heads of each column was covetousness, ambition, jealousy, and then intemperance. They headed each column. As I beheld, I was filled with inexpressible anguish. And then, as the Holy One upon the throne slowly turned the leaves of the ledger, and his eyes rested for a moment upon individuals, his glance seemed to burn into their very souls. See, these are people who take but don't want to give.
Mm-hmm.
One class were registered as cumberers of the ground, as the piercing eye of the judge rested upon these, their sins of neglect were distinctly revealed. With pale and quivering lips, they acknowledged that they had been traitors to the holy trust. They had had warnings and privileges, but they had not heeded nor improved them. They now see that they presumed too much upon the mercy of God. True, they had not such confessions to make as had the vile and basely corrupt, but like the fig tree, they were cursed because they bore no fruit, because they had not put to use the talents entrusted to them. You know, I watched that movie many years ago because I don't watch movies anymore. But many years ago, I watched the movie 300. And I may not be saying this exactly right because it was a long time ago, but there was a part in the movie, you know, because they were fighting against these different nations, and they were embedded there in this rock between this mountainous rocky area, and they used it as their defense. And one nation after another was coming to fight them, and they defeated them one by one. And the king, Leonidas, was talking to his men just moments before the next confrontation. And this was the part of the movie that sticks out more than any other. And he was talking to his men, and he was telling them, don't give them anything, but take everything. It was not just what he said, it was the way that he said it. Don't give them anything. When you're in a fight with the powers of darkness, and you could have given 100%, but you only gave 80, you gave him something. You gave him wiggle room when you could have taken him out. we're talking about fighting against men. We're talking about fighting against demons. Don't give them anything. Jesus said, when the prince of this world cometh, he hath nothing in me. In other words, there was nothing in him that responded to Satan's temptations. He didn't give the devil anything with which to work with. Don't give them anything, but take everything. You're fighting against demons. And no wonder these men were so hard to beat. Because if you live like that, it's hard to get the victory over them. But we are fighting against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Don't give them anything, but take everything. The only good thing about this tree was that Jesus, who was the vine dresser, interceded for him. And this parable represents the judgment scene. Jesus stepped in to intercede for this tree. It's the same position that we all find ourselves in right now. It's the scene. It's the investigative judgment. We are labeled as cumberers of the ground because we're not producing any fruit. And why is that? Luke 12. Jesus was speaking to the people. Now watch what this man does. In the middle of Jesus' presentation, and one of the company said unto him, Master, speak to my brother that he divide the inheritance with me. The man was out of place. He's talking about his personal situation. It's like interjecting in the middle of a sermon. And he's talking about his personal situation. But Mrs. White talks about this. She said, look, the reason he did that was because he possessed the spirit of covetousness. And so did his brother. And that's why he had the nerve to interject himself in the middle of Jesus' sermon. He was out of place. And he said unto him, Master, man, who made me a judge or a divider over you? And he said unto them, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesseth. It was that spirit speaking through the man that caused him to interject himself in the middle of Jesus' presentation. It's a spirit, the spirit of covetousness and the spirit of selfishness. And where you find one, you will find the other. Satan took advantage of the covetousness, selfish disposition of Judas and led him to murmur when Mary poured the costly ointment upon Jesus. Judas looked upon this as a great waste and declared that the ointment might have been sold and given to the poor. He cared not for the poor, but considered the liberal offering to Jesus extravagant. Judas prized his Lord just enough to sell him for a few pieces of silver. And I saw that there were some like Judas among those who profess to be waiting for their Lord. Satan controls them, but they know it not. God cannot approve of the least degree of covetousness or selfishness, and he abhors the prayers and exhortations of those who indulge in these evil traits. As Satan sees that his time is short, he leads men on to be more and more selfish and covetous, and then exalts as he sees them wrapped up in themselves, close, pernicious, and selfish. If the eyes of such could be opened, they would see Satan in hellish triumph, exulting over them and laughing at the folly of those who accept his suggestions and enter his snare. Even though these people are in church, they are possessed with demons. Sitting there in church because the spirit of selfishness and covetousness is contrary to the spirit of Jesus Christ. The spirit of taking and taking, but never giving. It's a spirit. Jesus has pleaded that the unfruitful tree might be spared a little longer. And I make one more plea for you to put forth no faint effort, but a most earnest one for the kingdom. Rescue yourself from the snare of Satan before the word. He is joined to his idols. Let him alone. Shall be spoken in regard to you in heaven. All money lovers, like yourself, will one day cry in bitter anguish, oh, the deceitfulness of riches. I have sold my soul for money. Your only hope now is to make no feeble move, but to turn square about, resolutely call to your aid the willpower that you will have so long exercised in the wrong direction, and now work in the opposite direction. This is the only way for you to overcome covetousness. How are you going to get the seal of God when you have the spirit of covetousness and selfishness, which means you are possessed with demons in the house of God, so close to the close of probation, expecting to receive the seal of God, and yet you're possessed with spirits of devils. We're this close. Not just these devils, but others as well. And this is the secret as to why so many of the people of God are sleeping in church, this close to the close of our probation. Through, no, I heard wicked words, blasphemous words, said Jesus as he looked upon you piteously. These are not the words of the man, but the words of the spirit that has possessed him. God will heal him. He has gone far in resisting the Spirit of God, but Jesus is drawing him by the tender cords of his love. He has separated from God, but God has not separated from him. Through a train of circumstances, he has lost confidence in himself, in his best friends, and turned from light to darkness, from truth to error, and has been left to feel his own weakness. When this young man gives himself to Christ, the victory is gained. Did you hear that? Said the heavenly voice, break with the deceiver. He is deluding your soul to your ruin. He will not let you go. Only the power of the mighty deliverer can save you. Charge not my precious loving Savior with your unhappiness and your ruin. The storm of temptation has swayed you like a reed in the wind, and through these bitter and almost overwhelming storms, you have clung to your mantle of power, hugging it closer about you. Prostrated in the dust, you are apparently devoid of willpower, without strength to rise. No earthly friend to raise you. You still cling to your pride. You utter words, the words of Satan abiding in your heart. Said Christ, it is not he, but a demon that speaks. I will save him if he will trust in me as a little child trusts in his father, his mother. You don't need a what's the word? You know, when people come in and make a big deliverance session, you don't need all that. This is what you need. The scriptures are the primary element to be used in breaking Satan's chains. The battle is chiefly a battle for the control of the mind. And Ellen White says that it is truth that frees the mind from Satan's lies. The scriptures are the primary element to be used in breaking Satan's chains. The battle is chiefly a battle for the control of the mind. And Ellen White says that it is truth that frees the mind from Satan's lies. Through the preaching of the gospel, Satan and his angels are cast out from people's minds. Through faith in the preached word, people are enabled to gain the victory, and the devil loses his hold upon them. Satan will eventually lose his power over all who continue to believe and trust in God. Satan's kingdom totters and falls before the presentation of sanctified truth. You are listening to a presentation of sanctified truth. And you gotta say it, because this is the way the people of God will get free from the power of Satan. The scriptures are the primary element to be used in breaking Satan's chains. You don't need all that other stuff. You need the word of God, and you need faith, and you need to let go of pride. This is how people are delivered from demon possession, even people in the church. Because we don't have much time, as I'm about to show you. We don't have time to fool around. So close before the shaking, just as soon as God's people are sealed and prepared for the shaking, it will come. The shaking is the enforcement of the Sunday law and the letting go of the winds. All of that is the shaking. But the people of God must be sealed before that. How you going to get sealed if demons are possessing you? And the spirit of prophecy just told us that covetousness and selfishness are the main spirits possessing the people of God right before probation closes. They run together. Where you find one, you will find the other. And they are spirits of devils possessing the people of God. Designed to keep them asleep until probation closes. And there's not much time left because we're right here. And the winds are about to blow. The shaking is about to occur, as you are about to see. When you look at all the things that are happening right now, and you see everything that's happening, and then you go back to what you were doing, as if it's just something that's going to pass, and then we'll go back to normal. Something is wrong. If you can look at all this and still think that we're going to go back to normal, something is wrong with you. If you can look at all that and then not look a little deeper and understand what's really happening. Our probation is about to close. That's what's happening. And the enemy is trying with all of this power to bring about the Sunday law. And the people of God don't understand that we must take decisive action right now in church in a daze. I'm going to read a little bit of Great Controversy. I just showed you how to break free from the hold of the enemy by the word of God. But let me just show you, let me just read from Great Controversy before I show you that we're talking about in a few days, these things are coming down on us because the enemy is desperate to bring about the enforcement of the Sunday law. And it's nothing but the power of God that holds him back. But we don't know if God is going to hold him back this time because it already started. Let me read this real quick. Great Controversy. I'm just going to read a few paragraphs. And then we'll go to our current events. I'm having trouble seeing the screen again. The Prince of Darkness, who has so long bent the powers of his mastermind to the work of deception, skillfully adapts his temptations to men of all classes and conditions. To persons of culture and refinement, he presents spiritualism in its most refined and intellectual aspects, and thus succeeds in drawing men into the snare. The wisdom which spiritualism imparts is that described by the Apostle James, which descends not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. This, however, the great deceiver conceals when concealment will best suit his purpose. He who could appear clothed with the brightness of the heavenly seraphs before Christ in the wilderness of temptation comes to men in the most attractive manner as an angel of light. He appeals to the reason by the presentation of elevating themes. He delights the fancy with enrapturing scenes, and he enlists the affections by his eloquent portrayals of love and charity. He excites the imagination to lofty flights, leading men to take so great pride in their own wisdom that in their hearts they despise the Eternal One. That mighty being who could take the world's Redeemer to an exceedingly high mountain and bring before him all the kingdoms of the earth and the glory of them, will present his temptations to men in a manner to pervert the senses of all who are not shielded by divine power. Satan beguiles men now as he beguiled Eve in Eden by flattery, by kindling a desire to obtain forbidden knowledge, an exciting ambition for selfish exaltation. It was cherishing these evils that caused his fall, and through them he aims to compass the ruin of men. Ye shall be as gods, he declares, knowing good and evil. Spiritualism teaches that man is the creature of progression, that it is his destiny from his birth to progress even to eternity toward the Godhead. And again, each mind will judge itself and not another. The judgment will be right because it is the judgment of self. The throne is within you, said a spiritualistic teacher. As the spiritual conscience awoke within him, my fellow men, all were unfallen demigods, and another declares, any just, perfect being is Christ. Thus, in place of the righteousness and perfection of the infinite God, the true object of adoration, in place of the perfect righteousness of his law, the true standard of humanity, the true standard of human attainment, Satan has substituted the sinful, erring nature of man himself as the only object of adoration, the only rule of judgment, or the standard of character. This is progress, not upward, but downward. It is a law both of the intellectual and the spiritual nature that by beholding, we become changed. The mind gradually adapts itself to the subjects upon which it is allowed to dwell. It becomes assimilated to that which it is accustomed to love and reverence. Man will never rise higher than his standard of purity and godness and goodness or truth. If self is his loftiest ideal, he will never attain to anything more exalted. Rather, he will constantly sink lower and lower. The grace of God alone has power to exalt men. Left to himself, his course must inevitably be downward to the self-indulgent and the pleasure-loving, the sensual. Spiritualism presents itself under a less subtle disguise than to the more refined and intellectual. In the grosser forms, they find that which is in harmony with their inclinations. Satan studies every indication of the frailty of human nature. He marks the sins with which each individual is inclined to commit, and then he takes care that opportunity shall not be wanting to gratify the tendency of evil to evil. He tempts men to excess, in which is his downward to, in which is in itself lawful, causing them through intemperance to weaken physical, mental, and moral power. He has destroyed and is destroying thousands through the indulgence of passions, thus brutalizing the entire nature of man. And to complete his work, he declares, though the spirits that true knowledge places man above all law, that whatever is his right, that God doth not condemn, and that all sins which are committed are innocent. When the people are thus led to believe that desire is the highest law, that liberty is conscience, that liberty is license, and that man is accountable only to himself, who can wonder that corruption and depravity teem on every hand? Multitudes eagerly accept teachings that leave them at liberty to obey the promptings of the carnal heart. The reins of self-control are laid upon the neck of lust. The powers of mind and soul are made subject to the animal propensities, and Satan exultingly sweeps into his net thousands who profess to be followers of Christ. I'm going to stop right there because I'm having a problem here. But many are deceived. That's what we get here. Many are deceived, and Satan, it's his job to keep them in deception until it is too late. The very thing he's doing to the people of God, keeping them in deception until our probation closes. And now let's see. We can gauge the shortness of the time by simply watching these stories. We saw this before, but we're going to see it again. of what could possibly happen in the next few days.
Court for a couple of decades with the white primary cases in Brown versus Board, where you get a court on the side of the freedoms and equality of the American people. But the court is not going to save us. And so that means the only thing that really works is people in motion amending the Constitution. But again, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient, because what can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing, not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress, so it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means. And I'm glad that Sherilyn's creating her new center so we can bring that back to life, even as we're continuing to amend the Constitution, as Professor Hassan has invited us.
So if they succeed in what they are planning to do, it will lead to a meltdown of society and the enforcement of martial law, and then the enforcement of the Sunday law, which is the enemy's goal. They don't see all that. All they see is, do not let this man take the presidency. And certification takes place on January 6th.
Stark warning for Donald Trump about a brand new pathogen that would be released during his administration.
Is the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And
a surprise outbreak. And notice the certitude with which he says those words.
How is this man not in jail? He's making this speech right before Trump took office back in 2016. The thing is happening, and I'm going to show you later on in the video, the same exact thing is happening today, right before Trump is going to take office. They're doing the exact same thing. It was Fauci before. Now there's another man, Peter Hotez. But watch this.
In the arena of infectious disease, growing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And
a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak of infectious disease during the next administration. Now, this is the final report for the COVID Select Committee after 2 years of investigation. The 500-page report says, yes, COVID did get released from a lab. Did it happen on purpose? Of course it did. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They released COVID in order to destroy Donald Trump's chances of being reelected in 2020. Donald Trump had a rip-roaring economy. Donald Trump was marching forward. He was going to demolish Joe Biden. Everyone had Trump up 10, 15 points. All the scandals, nothing else had worked. And so they did political assassination via virus, ladies and gentlemen. The virus possessed a biological characteristic not found in nature, says the committee. Data shows that all COVID cases stem from a single introduction to humans. This runs contrary to previous pandemics with multiple spillover events. Wuhan is close to China's foremost SARS research lab, which has a history of conducting gain-of-function research. Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers were sick with COVID-like virus in the fall of 2019, months before COVID was discovered, and nearly all measures of science, if the evidence of these people are, may or may not be familiar with Peter Hotez. Peter Hotez is 65 years old, RFK, 69 years old. Who looks healthier? Peter Hotez represents the medical establishment in this country, pale and bleak, sickly looking, very freakish, disgusting slobs who wish to control you. Peter Hotez has been destroyed by Joe Rogan before publicly. Joe Rogan offered him $100,000 to debate RFK. He wouldn't do it. Peter Hotez regularly says that Joe Rogan is trying to create vaccine misinformation. Ladies and gentlemen, well, Peter Hotez just said on TV, maybe my next bone-chilling video, because this certainly isn't misinformation. Here we go. Top vaccine researcher, Peter Hotez, says multiple viruses will be unleashed on America the day after Trump takes office. We have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st. What the hell is he talking about? This sounds exactly like the kind of certitude that Dr. Fauci said there will be massive surprise infectious disease outbreaks in the next administration.
Here's the reason why we need to care about this stuff, Nicole, is that we have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st.
Big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st. It sounds like an Apple product rollout. But what he's talking about are what, new viruses? Let's listen.
Mr. Bloomberg mentioned H5N1. That I'm really worried about. It's all over wild birds on the western part of the United States and going up in the north. It's getting into the poultry. We're seeing sporadic human cases, no human-to-human transmission yet, but that could happen. It's in the cattle. It's in the milk. Yep. And that's just the beginning. We have another major coronavirus likely brewing in Asia. We've had SARS in 2002, SARS-2, COVID-19 in 2019. And we know these viruses are jumping from bats to people thousands of times a year, but there's still more. We know that
there was no zoonotic transmission. So first off, F you. Dude is so full of misinformation. But this is horrifying. Listen to him threatening. This sounds like a threat.
Have a big problem with mosquito-transmitted viruses all along the Gulf Coast, where I am here in Texas. So we're expecting dengue and possibly Zika virus coming back, or a Puche virus, maybe even yellow fever. And there's more. Then we have all this sharp rise in vaccine-preventable diseases going up because of, in part, the anti-vaccine activism that's so prominent right now. We have a five-fold rise in pertussis cases, whooping cough over the last year, 15 measles outbreaks this year. We've got polio that's been in the wastewater.
Dude, this is a threat. This reads like a threat.
And he said that all of these diseases are scheduled to break out on January 1st. Now that, because he put a date on it, now you got to call him before Congress and explain, how do you know the date? Especially after we just saw what Fauci did. And he may go to jail if Biden does not pardon him. He may go to jail. And yet this man was bold enough to come out here on public, in the public, and make the same type of statement. How do you do that? They're calling for Fauci to go to jail, and he comes out and does the exact same thing. But we're looking at this, and we have to look at it because we're watching. He's talking about January 21st. Today is January 4th. I've showed you this before, and I'm going to show it again. Leading up to January 21st. But we don't look at it from a political standpoint. We look at it because we're watching, because we're looking, because we know where this is leading. So we have to watch it. Anything that threatens lockdown or martial law could lead to the enforcement of the Sunday law. And we know the enemy has been desperately trying to bring about the enforcement of the Sunday law. And God has blocked him at every turn. If you don't know that, you have not been watching. He says, we will finally have a law we will finally have a law that will exterminate all who will not submit to our authority. He's been trying and trying for years to enforce the Sunday law, and God has blocked him, represented by the angels holding back the four winds of Revelation 7. But we know what's going to happen.
That will impact plans this evening. Already, the National Weather Service has issued a dense fog advisory for Charlotte and Lee counties. It officially goes into counties starting to see those visibilities deteriorate. So, dense fog advisories and
cancellations continue across the country this morning amid the busy holiday travel crunch. You're looking live at LAX. This seems to be fairly dense at this hour, but also delays in other parts of the country caused by severe weather. Thousands of flights have been delayed in the past 3 days. At LAX, flight delays have jumped this morning from 60 to 126, and we have 2 more cancellations to report, raising the total to 8 canceled flights.
For the past several days, regions around the globe, from the bustling streets of New York City to the quiet countryside of rural England, this phenomenon has left people questioning everything they knew about the weather. But this isn't just any fog, it's something far more sinister. Reports are flooding in from social media.
There is, without a doubt, something going on across the country. This is being reported to coast, even in the UK.
TikTok, YouTube, and X are abuzz with videos of this unusual mist. Residents describe an unsettling chemical odor lingering in the air, paired with strange glittering particles that seem almost alive. People are falling ill, complaining of nausea, dizziness, muscle aches, and even rashes after coming into direct contact with the fog. The question is, what's causing this? Scientists are baffled. Weather experts say this isn't your typical mental pollutants to something more deliberate. Geoengineering experiments gone wrong, or even chemical dispersion. But here's where it gets even stranger. Sightings of unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, have surged in the weeks leading up to the fog's arrival.
Let me show you what it looks like. What is this? I have never, ever seen this. This isn't fog. It acts like fog. And there is a very weird smell.
There's a very distinct smell. Everyone's saying it smells like something's burning, like chemicals. Having respiratory issues for being outside for 60 seconds.
So I'm just going on my walk here, and I'm seeing these crystal pellets all over the place. And at first I thought it was ice. And I picked it up, and they're not heavy, they're very light. What is that? This is coming out of our sky. It just rained. They are all over the place. It is on this block here. I'm walking just to see if it's in one area, but it's literally all over the place. Look. It's not ice. It's not melting. It's like plastic. It's not a rock. I've never seen a rock like this. And it's leaving these like shards of glass. You see that? All over my hand as I do this. Look. It's like breaking apart. What is going on? What is that?
Dude, what the
States. Fog? Okay.
What's really going on here? Math of something much larger, something intentional. The truth is out there, and it's up to us to find it. If you've experienced this strange fog or its effects, share your story in the comments below. Let's keep asking questions, demanding answers, and staying vigilant. The fog may cloud our vision, but together we'll uncover the truth.
Sorry about that. I missed
Thank
that,
you for watching, and make
I was supposed to get that out. But if you can look at this and still think everything is normal, something is wrong. Or if you can't see that something is about to happen, something is seriously wrong.
Because when the tracer rounds connected, all I saw was a spark shield there, and the LSD took the bullets. The bullets seemed to be so. These drones are incredibly powerful, incredibly, and that's before you even get into everywhere that they go. So that's where we are with this. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what's going. 4chan post that you put on from 2022, which will be going on with these drones. It will be radiological attacks. So not necessarily, could be nukes, could be dirty bombs, permanent lockdowns. What does this remind you of? Permanent lockdowns and medical restrictions that will be obeyed by people. Imagine instead of having to wear a mask, you have to wear an astronaut suit. Either one of those.
Permanent lockdown. Again, it keeps coming up.
Level 5. Level 5
hazmat suits. Oh
yes.
My God!
Prediction on a 4chan post also said the mainstream media will do the heavy lifting on spreading fear. To go out to the supermarket during the lockdown, it's no problem. I have to do it as part of my duty.
Like the mask was a sham, of course, right? And they already are. They're doing their heavy lifting on this. If I don't wear a hazmat suit and I say,
this is January 4th. They're saying all of this is going to come to a head before Inauguration Day. Do you see how close we are? That's why this cannot be ignored. Only if God intervenes and holds it back, and there's no guarantee he's going to do that.
It's well documented that there were extraterrestrial vehicles and sightings. E5 at White Sands. Everybody has heard of Roswell, but there have been many of them. But those don't just come. You don't go for interstellar space and can't fly through a thunderstorm. I mean, every jet pilot I know can do that. These were even back then. We had a type of electromagnetic weapon that, with low yield, with low success, if you can call this success, were effective. Now the systems are quite advanced, and the big worry here is that at what point, if we don't fix our own problem as humans, at what point will it need to be corrected for us, which would actually be the worst case scenario. I don't think at all that they're hostile. If they were, we'd be, as one congressman said to me, we'd be our charcoal briquette floating through space would be done, right? Because when all this started, remember, we had vacuum tubes. We didn't even have transistor. We didn't have integrated circuits. So, or any of that. So obviously these civilizations are trying to be very patient, but I think we're getting close to end game here. And here's why. One of the reasons why these guys are defecting, it's not just this one guy, it's people from 6 black sites. And is that the technologies that have been reverse engineered and put into deployment as weapon systems are so advanced that organization has become a threat to extraterrestrial peoples. So, in other words, we've downed their objects, studied them, and over these 7 decades, come up with technologies. But instead of, saving the biosphere with so-called zero-point free energy or what have you, they've been kept very secret, and they've been used by this Frankenstein that's gotten up off the table and walked away. And I don't know that that can happen much longer. So the people in that system who are now, they may have started out as the Delta Force Green Beret in their teens or 20s, and now they're middle-aged and at a senior level. They know how dangerous this is, and that's why they're taking these risks to come forward. And it's why I did. I'm 69 now. I should be retired and just seeing my 12 grandkids instead of this madness. But, when you realize what's at stake, you just say, I got to do something, and they're trying to do what they can do. So
he's telling us that there are certain men that have been involved with these so-called UFOs, which they're not UFOs, they're man-made. And they're going to come out and reveal who they are, these men, and they're going to warn everyone of the danger. Now that's supposed to happen within the next few weeks. And along with this man, Dr. Stephen Greer, they're going to expose this entire UFO hoax. But we know that in the very near future, they plan on using these UFOs, because a lot of people still think they're actual aliens, and they're going to start attacking cities. And these spacecraft are full of radiation, and people are going to be getting burned, and they're going to show it in the city on the news, and and that's how they're going to get people that's how they're going to call for a lockdown. Everything leads to a lockdown. So these men coming out to expose the plot, their lives are in danger, including this man right here, which he knows it. Because I was like, why is he out here advertising? Because he's a target, as well as the rest of them. But they plan on exposing it. So even in this month of January, we're going to see some crazy things. And
they've reached out to me to sort of speak to this in preparation, but also to get this information to various leaders around the world.
Could I ask you a question about the rogue military organization? Because they came in contact with alien technology, they had this power, and so they used this power to create this rogue thing. But in the big picture, what is their goal for themselves? Because they're human, right? Do they want world domination, billions of dollars? I mean, what is their? It's like a movie. They're just sociopaths. They want to.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, they're sociopaths. Some are psychopaths, and they have the ability to hoax all kinds of stuff. There was and this has been threatened against me, by the way. There was a whistleblower last year who wanted to come forward from an operation that had been out in the northern Nevada desert. They're called the Nevada Test Range, where we used to detonate atomic nuclear weapons and test them, who was on a team retrieving both disabled man-made UFOs. They were triangular ones. Mostly those were built by Northrop Grumman or Raytheon. But then he escalated to being part of a retrieval team when they stunned and it just landed. It didn't crash, an extraterrestrial vehicle. And when he tried to defect, he was harassed. They actually set up a fake abduction event. We have the whole account. He was going to come to Congress and privately brief Senate Intelligence and Armed Services people and go to the Pentagon to give his testimony. We were in the process of booking his ticket. And there were guys that showed up at his door and they said, look at your phone and look at your computer. And they had embedded child pornography all over it. And they said, you will go to prison.
That's the easy one, right?
All right. And that kind of that dirty tricks these guys can do, the deep fakes, the AI associated stuff, the ability to penetrate. And so
you've heard of alien abductions. He just explained it. It's the government. It's the United States government with these fake alien abductions. And there's another explanation. There are several explanations of it. People who know, who are on the inside, they're telling. There's no such thing as aliens. And everything that has happened or that will happen is planned by the government.
Often what happens, these whistleblowers, they get right to the... Now, I've had those games played on me for almost 30 years. I mean, defamation, all manner of horrible things. And I was told yesterday, you just bake this into the cake, and people are stupid enough and gullible enough to believe this. Is very much stops dead in the tracks most people, because I don't talk about this that often. But back in 1992, as a young doctor, when I first started getting involved, General Stubblebine offered me personally $2 billion if I would join his team and not pursue what I'm doing. That was a lot of money back then.
Where would he get that money? It's $2 billion. How does he? He would just move government money around.
Talking about. There's just so much money.
Just
we don't even know
moving government money.
Well, what he told, this was they're all kinds of creative sources. No, this was going to come out of assets.
That's happening now. There's huge activities going on now. Lots more. They deployed an entire carrier group down off.
Carrier group?
Yeah, the Nimitz carrier group. They deployed it down off the Baja to monitor the site down there. There's an underwater base for sure, right off Guadalupe Island, down underneath the sea.
Can we Google Guadalupe Island so we can see that?
Yeah, there's a specific spot.
You said this has to do with the church?
No, what I'm saying is that there are things happening now. There's such rapid developments that are going on now that they now know that there is this location right off Guadalupe Island, between there and Baja.
That island right there on the screen.
Which one is Guadalupe?
Unless we just lost the screen.
Is Guadalupe Island? Yeah, down there's Baja. One of those. It's which one is Guadalupe?
The little thing right there. Yeah, that thing.
Yeah, that would be it.
Got it.
Okay, so is that Guadalupe Island? Yeah, that's the one.
Guadalupe.
Right off that island, right there, beneath the sea. They deployed the entire the Nimitz carrier.
That's David
group.
Fravers.
Yep.
Right.
And they monitored over 100 sightings of UFOs coming and going down into the ocean right there and going down to the bottom of the ocean. And they were monitored by the submarines. That's right, monitored by the submarines underneath the water coming and going, so that there's virtually certainly a base there. And that there's another base outside of Sedona, Arizona, over by there's a place called the Secret Mountain Wilderness over there. That's just totally desolate area. There's a base there where where the craft are, and so there's a number of them high in the mountains and remote areas of the planet, and that they're here now, and that they're extraordinarily distressed. You can tell about the state of affairs right now.
Of humanity.
Yes.
Do you think that some of them possibly could be something else? And to be specific on that, I'm not saying all of them, but that some of them could be some form of advanced 40 to 60 years ahead DARPA weaponry or something like that we aren't aware of? Meaning, like this one outside Guadalupe, if they're going into the water right there, so close to this island where we have carrier ships and stuff like that, on something like that, more than like, say, a Sedona, Arizona example, I more think something like this at Guadalupe could involve weaponry as opposed to actual alien UFOs, if you will. You think that's possible?
No, they should phrase it that way. Is it conceivable? There's a lot of things that are conceivable, but that's not how you really conduct an investigation. What you do is you work from probability projections, and you work out from that. That it's quite clear to me that facility off Guadalupe is in fact a base, an extraterrestrial base. Yeah.
They know where it is. They know where all of them are.
It is definitely one of the most bizarre twists in the church COVID saga over the past few years. So what better place than Gaslight Village in East Grand Rapids to feature this clip?
For example, we have been at the General Conference accused recently for promoting vaccine. We have not promoted that.
Not only has the church encouraged vaccination in all its history, but also the current reality in the church medical institutions shows an overwhelming support for the vaccination for the purpose of saving lives. The church, nonetheless, has encouraged all people to be vaccinated.
Subscribe at beltoftruth.tv. It's the complete library, and it's free to those who can't afford it.
We also have the video of Mark Finley encouraging all 22 million Adventists to get vaccinated. And he said, and he used Roman terminology, do it for the common good. So the General Conference has promoted it. And then this last one if you caught one of the past videos, the man was saying that the technology is reverse technology. When they would get these supposed alien crafts, this is a combination of human and demonic technology. Aircraft that can anti-gravity spacecraft. This is that's what the government has been using to give the impression that these are alien craft. But guess who? Elon Musk. Elon Musk has that technology. And he has his own anti-gravity aircraft.
Black. It's surf-known materials that seem to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its streamlined, saucer-like shape defied typical aerodynamic wings and tail configuration. Smooth contours hinted at an entirely different approach to air-resistant engines, wings, or even a cockpit in the traditional sense. Instead, subtle iridescent panels. Musk explained that the jet used a combination of anti-gravity propulsion and electromagnetic field manipulation, allowing it to hover, rotate, and accelerate in any direction almost instantaneously. The technology was rooted in decades of theoretical physics, inspired by concepts once considered purely speculative. Cutting-edge AI systems governed flight dynamics, responding to commands and environmental factors at speeds beyond human reflexes. One of the most mind-blowing features was its purported speed capability. Musk claimed the jet could reach speeds exceeding Mach 7.
We were just told that these aircraft, the supposed UFO aircraft, they're constructed by Northrop Grumman and Raytheon. He just told us that. So Elon Musk, who has the money, he went and made his own. And if you had the money, I guess you could do yours as well. But this just shows you that these are not UFOs. These are man-made aircraft. And but the main point of all this is that things are already happening in this month of January, and it's all designed to lead to martial law, which will lead to the Sunday law. And there are several things lined up. So all I'm saying is we could be approaching the end of our probation. Unless God intervenes, we will be at the end of our probation very soon. So I'm going to give our closing prayer, and we're going to take some questions on the other side, questions or comments. Father in heaven, we thank you for the things that we have seen, the things we have learned. We pray now that you would help us to understand the times in which we live, that we may get ready, be prepared, and not be caught off guard before the coming of that great day when we must appear before the throne of God. Help us to be ready. Thank you for being with us. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. All right, questions or comments? Most of it is aimed right here. There's a lot of stuff, but we aimed everything in January because that's when it's supposed to happen. So there's no need talking about things later on. This is right now, and it's already begun. Now you got stuff in the air that we're breathing into our bodies, things that they put into the atmosphere. This world is done. So I don't see how anybody can have plans of just living here and thinking you're going to be happy. This tells us that, look, it's over. Whatever plans you have, that's it. This world is over, and it's going to go exactly the way the word of God said it would go, and the spirit of prophecy. We're already there. The only thing is we got to get right before probation closes. That's the only thing we need to be doing right now. Make sure we get the seal of God before probation closes. Questions or comments before we go?
Well, I have two. Hi, happy Sabbath, Brother Mike and siblings on the line. I have two comments. My first comment is referencing the UFOs or the unidentified object. So my daughter was traveling to Nashville on the 23rd, December 23rd, her and her friend. And just before they hit the state line, she said she saw a whole bunch of objects in the air and she thought it was birds. But then she was like, was it bees? But it can't be birds because birds usually form in a formation. They just like they was all over the sky, all over the sky. And so she looks on TikTok and the person is actually recording, doing a presentation about what she saw in the air. But he or the person did not use drones. They used the Dior bag. They coded it as a Dior bag because certain videos get taken off. So they showed you what was in the air, but they terminalized it something different so that their video could, I guess, get the attention that it needs. But I just wanted to make that reference in correlation to the gentleman who was the last presentation of the gentleman who was letting us, revealing some intel that we're not privy to. But the whole sky was full. My daughter is telling me she saw it. It was like between the North Carolina and the Tennessee state line.
Wow. And really that can happen to anyone. It's happening so much right now. If you're out there, you could very well see it. But and then like sometimes like they try to communicate with you. Some people try to communicate with them. Just remember, these are demonic entities, and there shouldn't be any communication going on. And I mean, if we're seeing all this right now, there's no telling what we're going to see in a few days or what's going to happen. But we know it's going to be some crazy things that are about to break loose in these next few days. So, we constantly have to pray for God's protection. Not just that, but the things they're putting out in the air. They control the weather. They control these so-called UFOs. They control everything. There's nothing that's happening that's just natural. It's all man-made and controlled by man and demons. So we need God's protection, and God is protecting us. But if you don't get the seal of God, you will no longer have that protection. Yes, you were going to say something?
Oh, I can wait. Go ahead.
Okay, no, that was it. If we don't have the seal of God, our protection, if we don't get the seal of God before probation closes, our protection will come to an end. And we will be exposed to everything. So we enjoy God's protection right now, the people of God, especially, not everybody else. I'm talking about the people of God. We have God's protection until probation closes. If you don't get that seal of God, you will be exposed to everything. Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, so my second comment is kind of off topic, but it does reflect the times that we're living in with the brazenness and the boldness of evil and the demonics and these societies that are out there that are just being sold. Just makes my blood boil. But anyway, I traveled to Pennsylvania on Christmas Day. I don't celebrate holidays or anything like that. So I traveled. I went to my brother's house, and I don't watch TV, but I had to watch TV because I'm at somebody else's place. The game, it was the Texans game, and Bewitched, aka Beyonce, did the halftime show, and I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was over the top, and I'm just like on edge, like, oh Lord, something is going to happen. So at the end, I was like, okay, just thinking. Soon as I thought to myself, okay, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. At the end, she gets in this crane thing that lifts her up in the air. But when she gets into this thingy, a cross is behind her, and she does this hand signal. Well, forget the hand signal. I didn't know what the hand signal meant, but that cross behind her just had my blood boiling. The brazenness of how they're doing stuff now, it is to like a whole nother level. She did not need to get into some type of, I mean, you can argue and say that maybe that was to hold her still while she's in this thing, lifting her up in the air, but it didn't need to be a cross. It didn't have to be a cross. It could have been a whole bar going across the back of the little gadget to hold her. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know about nobody else. I don't know if anyone saw that, but I just had to pray. I did pray for her. I prayed for her husband too, that I'll be glad when the day come that every knee and every evil person will have to bow down to our Jesus. Because the mockery and the debauchery, and it's just to a whole nother level. Just a whole, but that's my comment. Anyway, I digress.
And we did a story. We saw a story about the Super Bowl, the halftime shows. They're all demonic. It's a demonic show. So they do things that everyone doesn't understand, but they understand. Those who are involved with this, they understand it, but we don't understand what they're doing because it is a demonic display. And it just shows you how low that we have gotten, that they can do this and display it for the entire world to see. A demonic display, devil worshipers, rejoicing together. And we're sitting there watching this, but we just saw that. But the halftime show of every Super Bowl, the halftime show is a demonic display. That's what it is. And it's always going to be like that. So you can't say, well, but this halftime show is going to be all right. All of them are demonic displays. So if you got to watch the Super Bowl, just cut out, leave for halftime, because that's all it is. Yes. Okay. Yeah. D. Robinson. Thank you, Nicole.
Happy Sabbath. I was based off what Nicole was saying, like Beyonce considers herself Christian. So the people that think that she's Christian, they wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I don't know how she consider herself a Christian. That girl is a devil worshiper. She has seances on a regular. So I don't know about that fact, but I know her music, when her CDs and stuff, they come with spells. So maybe her considering herself a Christian is a satanic Christian in their realm, but not what I call myself to be a Christian of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior.
Oh, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, just like um, Denzel getting baptized and now he's a minister, what the Kojic denomination or whatever. Is he Christian? I don't know, because a lot of them are into spiritualism, just like Oprah. I don't think she claims Christianity anymore, but she's like, they're very into ancestor worship, and it's very much like traditional African religion, where yes, they believe in God, like they're like, like there's a main creator God, but then they have all these demigods, and they consult the ancestor spirits and all this weirdness, and but they still consider themselves Christian.
Yeah, I think that's they know what they are, but they say they're a Christian. I think they do that because so that they can remain popular among the people, because they're not going to come out there and say, I'm a devil worshiper or I worship Satan. People look at them like they're weird. So they say they're Christian so that they'll be more accepted by everyone. But I don't believe for 1 minute that they actually believe that they're a Christian. I believe they say that for the masses, for the public. Because it's like a secret group. And, I think that's one of the things that they do. They just say, oh, and for years, we've been watching the music awards when they come up there and they accept an award and they say, I would like to thank God. I would like to thank Jesus. They don't worship Jesus. They have participated in demonic rituals, which is they know exactly what they're doing, and they got their position because of that. So when they say that, they know exactly what they're saying. They're not a Christian, and it's for the public perception of them. That's the way I have taken it, and that the way I take it now.
But is that any different?
Yes, go ahead.
But is that any different than the average nominal Christian these days? I mean, they're partying, drinking, doing what, and it's like, oh, I'm a Christian. No, you're not. But but they think they are.
Yeah, I think the average Christian, they are really deceived. They believe they are. They believe they are good in the sight of God. But these people, they know what they are. And
I see. Okay.
The average Christian, they think they're good with God. They're in a deception. And they think it's all right to go to a nightclub on Saturday night and then go to church on Sunday. They don't see anything wrong with that. And I've been baffled with that for years. Like, seriously, but that's what they believe. And they're in a deception. So it's our job to reach them as well. All right, thank you, Donna. Any other comments?
Thank you.
No other comments? Okay, so thank you everyone for coming on, and let me see.